Hey, well, what's up, everybody? This is Bryant, the Flowhawk, and I'm just a guy who did a thing, and the thing I did this time was connect Power Apps portals to Azure B2C for authentication. Let me show you what I did. Okay, I'm going to start here in the Maker portal for Power Apps, make.powerapps.com. I've got my own environment here, and within this environment, I created a portal Power App. Okay, it's really simple. It's an out-of-the-box Power App. I literally have done nothing to customize this app. Okay, when you go and sign in on an out-of-the-box app, Power App portal, excuse me, you've got the options here for the user to do a local sign-up, sign-in. They can register up here, redeem an invitation that you can send them for your portal, or they can use one of many different external sign-ins. Here we've got Azure Active Directory, but it could be Twitter, could be LinkedIn, could be a Microsoft account. This is the default experience for this portal. We can change it. And in fact, when you've got requirements to be a little more secure than any of that, for instance, if you don't want to be storing any login information in your dataverse, you would not want to do that local account sign up, sign in. Instead, we can leverage an Azure B2C, business to consumer, meaning that anyone outside your organization or from any organization or not even an organization, right, with a personal account or personal email can come and create an account on your portal. I did this recently, and there were a lot of pitfalls. Thought I'd walk you through the best way to go about it. To start, let's look at Azure. Okay, I'm no Azure expert. I'm also no Power Apps portals expert. For that, you're going to look at Oliver Rodriguez, a couple other people out there from the Scottish Summit. I can't remember your names off the top of my head. There's plenty of people who've done documentation and videos. I do know this process changes all the time. And when I walked through doing this, even leveraging all of that awesome videos and blog posts out there, I was not able to get this to work correctly. So I want to show you exactly what I had to do to get this up and running in my app. Okay, first things first, Azure. Azure can be separated out into a bunch of different subscriptions. Each subscription has within it resource groups, and each resource group has within it, you guessed it, resources, right? Grouped together in a resource group. So you'll need to either be an admin on a subscription or have a subscription created for you with a resource group in it that you have owner permissions on, because we got to create our Azure B2C tenant within a resource group. Here I've got a subscription I've created, and within the subscription, I can create a resource group. Okay, I will note, though, before you move on, there's this section called resource providers. If we're going to be adding an Azure B2C to the subscription, we need to register Azure Active Directory as a provider within the subscription. Okay, I can't remember which one of these two it is, but you can test it out and see which one exactly it is. I registered them both just for the sake of getting it to work correctly. I do believe some of the others were registered by default. Okay, resource groups. I've done this a couple times in here because this can be fickle. So here's where you would come to the resource groups. As a part of the wizard, I'll show you where you could create a resource group as a part of that. But what I've noticed is it may take time for that to actually populate and provision correctly, and it screws up the wizard a little bit. So I like to create this resource group ahead of time here instead. So just note here that the resource group, whatever you name it, you can't rename it very easily. I'm sure somebody somewhere knows a PowerShell script, a Cloud Shell or Azure Shell, I can't remember what it's called here, that you can run that renames a resource group or something similar. I couldn't find it. If you're going to do like a dev test prod, make sure that you've got that naming convention nailed here, because this is not easily changed. So here I'm going to do, dev, because this will be our dev portal and our dev environment. Dev Azure B2C. Make sure that the region is the same region that your portal is configured in. That way we don't have any latency issues, especially if you've got any data privacy type, governance type compliance that you need to meet. We need to make sure that our region is well thought out for where that's going to be. I'm going to just go ahead and create this resource group now, and I should have it here. It's our dev Azure B2C Flowhawk portal resource group within our Azure subscription. Now I could open this up here and add in our B2C resource. Just search B2C here. But I have found that the B2C piece can be created really easily within the wizard, and that seems to work all right. So I'm going to leave this where it is currently. We'll just come back to it after we've created our B2C tenant. Okay, hopping back to the maker portal. If you click the 3 dots on your portal after it's been provisioned, and it takes hours for this portal to be provisioned sometimes. So I wanted to provision it ahead of time so we didn't have to wait there. But once it is provisioned, you can click those 3 dots, hit settings, and view the authentication settings for your portal. Now, one thing I want to note here, all of these can be configured. By default, you've only got the local sign-in and the Azure Active Directory. It's really easy for us to configure an additional one. But you see here, we've only got 2 steps here. It leaves a lot for us to do manually to get this set up and running correctly. What we want to do instead is pop open a new tab. And instead of make.powerapps.com, we're going to go to make.preview.powerapps.com. And this is a trick I saw from Oliver Rodriguez here. This gives us some additional options. So if I come here and click those 3 dots again, go to settings, authentication settings. Okay, same list. Everything looks exactly the same. I click the 3 dots, hit configure. I now have 5 steps. So this walks us through and does a lot of the heavy lifting for us. This is the way we want to go. So again, make sure you're doing this in the make.preview. It may move to public. I hope it does at some point. There are some issues with it still that I'm going to help you get over the hump on, but hopefully those get fixed and this gets moved into the public because it is a fantastic experience for configuring this Azure B2C. Okay, here we could choose an existing tenant. I'm going to create a new tenant. We don't know. I don't know if doing this all within a 5-minute period is going to screw it up. Sometimes it does. In which case we'll just go back and grab an existing one that we've created previously. Here we've got this B2C testing subscription. Then the resource group we created is the dev Azure B2C Flowhawk portal. Here we got to give it a domain name. So be aware that this also not easy to change the domain name. You can also, if you flip on MFA as a part of this experience, your users, when they go to register, will receive an email from this domain name. So this isn't just something that sits in the background that we can kind of throw away and give it a name, a random generated name. Here we need to actually be pretty thoughtful about what we want to name this. The hard thing is that if you're going to have people in your dev environment, your test, and your prod, you're not going to want to have, you're going to want to have 3 separate B2Cs when you walk through that experience, and each one's got to have a unique domain name. You're not going to want it to say dev Flowhawk portal, test Flowhawk portal, and prod Flowhawk portal. It's going to be kind of weird for your users to register in the prod one and receive an email from prod Flowhawk portal. So you got to think through that. It's kind of tricky. Here we'll do Flowhawk vendor portal. I may have already used this one. We'll see here as it does its check. Okay, perfect. It's still available. All right, we've got our country region. Make sure that that's where you'd like it to be. This data center location, pretty sure, it's you can't change what it is. I don't know exactly what the limitations are. This suggests that it changes based on what country or region you select there. Make sure you've got that set up correctly when you choose to create your B2C tenant. All right, so it's creating the tenant in the background in Azure for us. If you don't have permissions, it will say it across the top here. I have seen an error here where it says I don't have permissions, but it was just because I did it too quickly after creating that subscription and resource group. So sometimes it just takes some time to populate. Give it some time, go for a walk, take a coffee break, come back, and it may resolve those problems for you. Okay, it's going to ask us to create a new application. We don't have any existing applications because we just created our Azure B2C tenant. Nothing's in there. This also, if you turn on MFA, and your users are, they use email for one factor and text messaging for the other factor, this application name is going to be listed in the text message. So just know that this is also a public facing thing. All right, so be careful what you name that here. So we'll call it Flowhawk vendor portal. And I will also note as well that there is a character limit. I cannot remember what it is, but I have had this split my application name at an unfortunate point. in the text. So be aware, make this as short as possible. I may come back and shorten this to FH vendor portal. We'll just see as we go. Okay, creating that new application, it's going to create it for me in Azure, register it within my B2C tenant for me. And now we have the opportunity to create our user flows. So you need two basic user flows, one for the users to create an account and sign in. That's called our sign up, sign in user flow. The second one is our password reset. So they forget their password, they want to come back in and use the portal anyways. We need a separate user flow for that experience. Fortunately, this creates them both for us. When I hit create here, I have had this happen often where it says I've got access denied. This is that case where we've created this all too quickly, and now I've got an error. I can either wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes to make sure that that B2C tenant really is ready to go, or we can just use one that I've used previously, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to close out of that. Let's reconfigure this, step through it again. This time I'll choose an existing tenant. Let me just grab this B2C testing one, which I created, I think, a couple days ago. So this one should be good to go. All right, register this application. Let's see if there's one already registered here with this name. Okay, looks like that's going to work. All right, we have some existing flows, user flows. Let's create new ones here because I want to make sure that they're we make the configurations to these ones right out of the box. So I just got to note this name that I've got the sign up, sign in _2 and password reset _2. Hit create. All right. For some reason that didn't work. Choose those new policies again. Hit create. Again, you know, this wizard is in preview, and I have found it to be buggy. But still, even with all the bugs and walking through it, you know, I've had to delete and recreate, delete and recreate. It's still better than trying to manually configure, and make sure you don't have any errors as you're manually configuring this authentication piece. Okay, looks like it all happened. It was all created. I've got a bunch of information here. We can get it all if we come back and we need it. So I'm just going to close it out. Looks good. Now if I come in back to my portal, okay, and I refresh this page, let's let that refresh. It's going to take a second. And we'll check and see if our Azure B2C now appears in the sign up, in the sign in area of our portal. This can take a little while. Every time you make a change for it to recache that. Here we see the Azure AD B2C is right there, and I can launch that experience. And it's an out-of-the-box type experience. Okay, so we've got our cube logo here and the swooshy blue background behind it. Perfect. This is the Azure B2C out-of-the-box experience. Now I'm crossing my fingers here if I hit sign up now that it will actually launch my sign up or registration user flow. Yeah, this thing is so fickle. Okay, I've got a temp email here. So many ads. All right, I'm gonna paste that there, and let's send the verification code. I hope that this works and that it sends it to my temp email address. Earlier was having issues where this would not actually send me any sort of email. And that may be the case here as well. Okay. Looks like it's stuck. That's fine. I bet it's still, you know, spinning things up, latency there. Okay, coming back here, you noticed when I landed on that sign in page, it gave me a bunch of different options, right? And that Azure B2C was one of them. Well, we can default and make the users always go through the B2C, which if you're going to do an Azure B2C as an option, I just recommend making the default. If you're going to go through all that effort to add this as an option there, why not force all the users to do it in this secure method that you've provisioned for the portal? So I make that the default. In fact, I come in here and I disable the other options just in case somebody's able to go with a direct URL to one of those other options here. best practice, if you're going to make that default, is just to eliminate the other options, right? So now this is our only option here. This thing is still stuck. We'll move this over here if it ever decides to send that email address. Just so you're aware, what I'm waiting for is there's a window here that should pop out to let us put in a code, right? We sent the verification code. It probably hasn't sent it yet because it hasn't given us the option to put it back. And in fact, if I go to my temp email, yeah, it's empty. Don't have anything there. I wonder here if I get a new email address, we can launch that user flow again. We can pull up the vendor portal in a new tab. That's the same temp email. Let's launch a private session and get us a new temp email. Okay, grab that. And let's launch that sign-in experience again. Now this should send us to the default, right? And if not, it's because we need to sync our configurations. But here we go. So it launched us right into Azure B2C. We don't have that experience now of having to choose the different sign-up options or sign in, right? We get to launch right into the Azure B2C. Now, it's being stubborn again, won't launch our sign-up user flow. Not sure exactly what the case is here. I've seen this a couple times today. Not totally sure what that is. So here's our new temp email. Attempt to send that verification. Not sure if that's going to work. It looks like it's still stuck in the previous one. Yeah, not totally high on that experience there. Okay, we'll keep moving forward. Hopefully that resolves itself here. But we set that as enabled, and you saw that we had that default experience of hopping in, and those users now are automatically sent through that Azure AD B2C. Let's hop over to Azure. Okay, now if I refresh this resource group, I've got this B2C that's been created in here. Okay, I can open it up, and from here hop through it into this B2C. However, now I'm just realizing we ended up creating our flows in the different Azure B2C tenants. So let me edit this configuration so I can remember which tenant that was in. These password reset URLs, sorry, policy IDs. Let's go and see if we can find out which one it was in. I believe it was in the B2C testing. So once you've created that B2C, you'll find it in that resource group that you created it in. You should have the option now to swap directories once you navigate into it. You'll have the normal one that you created for your company, and then you'll have the B2C one that you created for this experience. I will note as well that currently I think it's 50,000 users that you get for free in an Azure B2C. Oh man, you know, for the added security you get in a portal authentication, why not, right? 50,000 users, that's great for Microsoft to offer that sort of level of free in there. All right, so here, I think this is where we're at. Let's look at app registrations. There's probably a couple in here. Okay, I think this is the one we added just now, is that Flowhawk vendor portal. I can check by looking at this application ID, coming back and seeing what this client ID was here, 2B17. Looking back in here, 2B17. Yep, so you know, this is the one that I've currently got registered. This was when I registered one previously in this tenant. And if I go to the user flows, I've got two now, right? And I've got to remember, I think the ones that I used here were the _2. Yep, so we see those user flows here as well as the password reset and the sign up, sign in here, _2. So if I look at the sign up and sign in one, we have a bunch of different options for properties. Okay, one is that multi-factor authentication. Let's just flip this to enabled. And it's as simple as that. And now I'm using MFA with my sign up, sign in. If this user flow ever works, I'll show you exactly what it looks like. But that's where we can enable that multi-factor authentication. When you look through here, I don't know exactly what all of these settings do. But this is what was configured by the wizard for us in here. I do know that if you want to limit, let's say, the number of days that a user can remain signed in for, we're looking at either this token lifetime or this session behavior group. I again, don't totally understand. There's great documentation on what these things are. So If you're looking to limit the amount of time a person can stay signed in for, that's what you're going to want to look at these in the sign up and sign in user flow. Okay, down here we choose the complexity of the password. This all looks pretty good. Identity providers, we've only got one option here. This is an email sign up. User attributes, I like to grab the email address, the given name, the surname. These are things that we can ask for during the sign up and sign in process from the user. Any of these that are built in out of the box, once that user signs up for our portal, it will not only create their user here in Azure, but it will pass things for us to Dataverse and create a contact record for that portal there, portal user there. When we select it here in user attributes, I believe these are written here in Azure Active Directory. And when we look at application claims, so let me save those. When we look at application claims, this is what's passed to whatever application is leveraging this Azure B2C. So you see up here this bar, okay, those were updated. Click application claims. Here's where I can also configure the given name and surname. Those will be passed for me back into our portal and be mapped to fields in Dataverse, which is super cool that I can do that. You can create custom user attributes, and then during the sign up and sign in experience, ask the user to fill them out. For instance, if you want the user to give you a business name that, to register, right? You don't want them to create an account without having a business name. You can create a custom user attribute and then pass that with application claims as well. And then we can map that right back to the Dataverse. I'll show you that a little bit later if we don't run out of time here. Page layouts. Now, you can customize these with custom HTML, and you're going to have to host that somewhere for your Power Apps portal. There's lots of detail out there on how to do that. The only thing I'll say here is we've got this option to grab page layout versions. You saw how we had that cube logo and the swooshy blue background there. I think that's actually technically called ocean blue. Okay, that's the default here. We only have 3 options for what the default can be. If we want to make that a little bit more custom of an experience, let's go back to our Azure AD B2C. And if we click on the app that we've registered, there's this little section called branding. Okay, here you can configure some branding for your application to be used in the user flows. We have the 2. All right, for some reason that's not launching what I thought. Okay, my mistake. I took you through the app. The company branding piece here is at the Azure AD B2C level. All right, so we're up here, Azure AD B2C, and here's the company branding area. Right here, we can configure this. The only things that are currently supported in B2C for configuring the branding is the banner logo and the sign-in page background image. That's according to the docs from Microsoft. These are the only 2 things currently supported. So let's just grab a banner logo. I think I have one here under downloads. I just got this Contoso logo. You'll see it's all squished and distorted. It won't appear distorted in our user flow. And then I'll just grab a background. Got a background here somewhere. That's a cool one. Okay, so too large. That one's too large to be used. Very strict constraints here on these. In fact, I know this Contoso logo is too large, you know, width-wise and pixel-wise, so it may not work for us here. Looks like I may not have. Oh, here's a good one. Okay. I created this B2C background that's just a flat gray. All right, so we can save this branding experience. Now, we could launch the user flow and it won't actually use the branding experience. Pretty confusing, but what you need to do is you have to actually go in and configure these user flows in order to use that branding experience. You'll notice I'm back in my sign up, sign in user flow. And if I come to the page layouts, the layout version here, so your version needs to be, and you got to click this drop down a couple times for it to actually show versions. It needs to be 1.2.0 or greater in order to use that branding experience that you had up at the front. You got to do this for each of these pages. So you see I've got 4 pages here: unified sign up, local account, multi-factor, and error page. These all need to use that that page version that's 1.2.0 or greater. Okay, so I'm saving these as I go. It's gonna take a little bit. If you don't do this to every single page and you only do it to some of them, the users will see your branding on some of those pages and it'll swap back. I always like to use the absolute latest version, and it'll swap back to the default ocean blue type of experience there if you don't have them all set up correctly. So as tedious as it is, we're going to go through and grab the latest version of these page layouts. Okay, now this should immediately be reflected in our portal. So let me come back here to the vendor portal homepage. Let's try this. Click sign in. And voila, we see that that actually worked. It trimmed the top of this a little bit weird, but again, I did not use the exact dimensions of this icon that they had requested. Now I've got my experience customized according to that company branding. Again, it's not well documented that we have to use that current version. Make sure you do that. I spent a long time, pounding my head against that. Now we go back to this local account sign up page. And let's see if this will actually launch for us the sign up experience. Gosh, we're still stuck here. What a bummer. Just want to show you so bad. Just want to show you the fields there. All right, well, and we're still stuck here waiting for that email. What a bummer. Okay. On that next page, right? So here's what it looks like. Asks you to register your email, asks you to set up a password. Now, since we've registered that we want to also receive the person's first name and last name, there will be 2 extra fields here that appear for that first name and last name. Since we're in here and looking at that local account sign up page, that's that page. We've made these optional, which means you could create well, we didn't even set what they were, right? They come optional by default, which means somebody could create an account and not give us any information there. We want to set these to be not optional, right? So that will actually give us the option here to require them. They can't create an account without entering something into those fields. Now, we can't say what. We can't say it has to be greater than 1 character. There's no way for us to verify this without custom code, validate a certain format. So for instance, if you throw a postal code in here and you want a Canadian formatted postal code, not going to happen out of the box. There's no validation you can perform on that field. So we've got that there. If you don't want this to say surname, then we've got to move on to something called application claims, right? So out of the box, this flow is only supported in 1 language. That's the default language, I think, of your Azure environment. So here we see here it's all light gray. It's just enabled for English. We can enable other languages of this user flow. So I click that enable language customization. Let's say we're in Canada and we want to support it in English and French. You're a global company and you have locations in 5 different countries with 5 main languages. You can support those languages here. Once you add that to customize, I can click French and enable it here. Okay, I could make it the default, but I won't. I'll just hit save. Once I've customized this added language customization here, not only do I have the ability to add in a second language, but I have the ability now to customize these page level, they're called claims, right? So I can create claim overrides here and modify what strings of text appear on those pages. So we see here it says, when I land here, sign in with your existing account. Okay, let's say that I want it to read something different. Or if I look at the French version of that page, okay, so let's come to this French one. Let's actually run this user flow. Okay, so if I run the user flow here on the languages page, I can actually choose to specify that I want to run the French one. And let's run that and look at what it appears as, right? So it translates it by default for me, all of those fields that come in. If I look at this and I say, this is not how our company communicates that same phrase in French, or we've got somebody who comes in to verify and they think that something should be said a little more clearly in a different way, we can modify these strings It's a little more tedious for us to do, but it is possible. So if I come here, let me just close out that running of the user flow, and I click on this French piece. Actually, I don't speak French, so I won't know exactly what those are saying. But if I click on the English one, I can actually download the defaults. I can download the overrides. You see, these are the 4 pages that we customized earlier. Let's look at this local account, and I can download the defaults. This will come as a JSON file for me, and I can open this file. Okay, in Notepad++ here. And it's got for me all of the strings that are used within this Azure B2C. So let's say that I wanted this, let's see, what was that phrase here? Sign in with your existing account. So let's find that here. Sign in. Okay. I don't think that that exists on this page, which means this set of claims is not this page. It's probably this one. So let's look and see if we can find the create button text here. So if I search for create, okay, here's the create buttons text itself. So if I want that to show something different, I can say create an account. Instead, here I'll change the override to true, meaning this property has been modified by me, and I now want it to override what was there previously. Okay, so I'm going to save this now, close it, and in, let's see, where were we? In here, I'm going to override that local account signup page with what I just customized. Now, upload it, should work here, and then it'll say that I've got overrides that I can download. Now, in the future, anytime I want to make any customizations, I need to download that override and the default and kind of merge the two together, or whenever I make a change to the default, move that to the overrides page. Just know that it's in here and it can be done to make those changes. If I can now run this user flow and run it in English, okay, this now, if I click sign up now, and it, please launch that sign up experience for me, please, please, please. Okay, you see now that button says create an account, and it is asking for the given name and the surname for us. Amazing. So we modified those claims, those default claims. Those things are here as well. Perfect. So let's see, what else do we need to do here? We've customized the branding. We've added in multi-language support here. Now, let me show you something that is something you should be aware of when it comes to this experience. Let me go back to our portal's main page. You would think, and it looks like I haven't enabled multiple languages. You can enable multiple languages here in your portal, right? And it's a drop down at the top for a user to change from English to French. You'd think that if I enabled French on this portal and I switched to French and then I hit sign in, that it would launch me the French B2C user flow, correct? It's actually not the case. Whenever I hit sign in, the B2C user flow will look at my browser's language. Okay, let me see. I think I've got a Firefox set up on my machine in French. Yep, so you know that I don't even know what any of this says. Let's look at FlowHawk vendor portal. PowerAppsPortals.com, I believe, is my URL. Okay, so if I hit sign in now, since my browser is in French, it will launch the French user flow. However, my portal won't know that my browser is French, so my portal by default will launch me into English. Just be aware that I have yet to find a way to pass the portal's language selection to the user flow. As far as I'm aware, can't be done currently. So be aware that when you're supporting multiple languages with your portal, that this is kind of the case. You got to rely that the user's got their browser set to the language they want to see in that sign up and sign in experience. Okay, that's something just to be aware of, to note there. Let's see now if that sign up, no, not going to work. Okay. Yeah, such a bummer for us. Okay, So let's see what else I've got on here. Oh yes, something else to be aware of as well. When I created this user flow, it was all done by default by the wizard, right? If I click forget my password, it will launch for me the password reset user flow. And you see, we didn't update these all to have that same layout of 1.2.0 or higher. It's going to revert back to the default branding that's there. Let's say I came here to reset my password. The way the wizard sets it up, if I reset this password, I believe maybe that I've got an account here. This. All right, let's see if my developer tenant here has an account. We'll find out in a second. Okay, perfect. Come back, verify that code. Oh, and let me show you here. Here is that tenant name, right? Perfect. Yep. So that's where you'll see that. Here's my email address. Here's the name of the tenant we created. That's where the user will see that. And then if we've customized this password reset URL, we will see the company logo here appear in the email address as well. So we've got that. Let me continue forward here. Okay, account cannot be found. And if I go back to try to create an account, I am sure that it will indeed fail. Now, it could be possible that I've created so many different user flows for this that it hasn't deleted a couple of them. So let's look in the portal management app. I can show you the records that have been created. Again, I'm not a Power Apps portals expert, but I do know that here in the site settings for my portal and under OpenID Connect, this is where all these settings were created for our Azure B2C authentication. It looks like I only really have one in here, so we're not confusing it here at all. But I will say that, yeah, it looks like all these settings are created correctly in here. The wizard by default makes it so that when you reset your password, it lands you on a page that says that your sign-in has failed. It's kind of a jarring experience for the user who's they think that they've done something wrong. The password does reset correctly. It just doesn't take you right where it's supposed to. So when I look back at our user flows, in that password reset _2, this is the one that it created for us for that password reset. So a couple of things that were recommended to me by Oliver Rodriguez in the tech community that solved that issue for me. It turns out that the user flow by default gives us some incorrect properties here. The issuer claim, you click that drop down, you have two options here. That TFP, and this one says it's a TFP, is actually the incorrect setting. You need to select the one that is a non-TFP and leave that the way that it is. But we need to keep that as a non-TFP. But what that means for us is there's a setting in Power Apps portals where you add in the issuer claim as well. This needs to now be updated. The way we do that is click Run User Flow. Click here on that link, and up at the top, it'll show you that issuer URL. So let's grab that. If we head back here, let's refresh this page. This is where we had configured all of that authentication, right? And this is, to me, the easiest way to modify. So if I edit the configuration and I come here to the valid issuers, it's got first our sign up and sign in issuer, and that one is correct. Then it's got a comma, and then here's the password reset one. This is using the TFP. Let's delete that, and with that comma still there, put the new one in. All right, and then I can hit save. This will actually make that password reset send us back to the sign-in user flow once we've reset our password. So that's exactly the experience we want users to have. Took me forever to find out that the wizard itself had just set the settings wrong. So just know that that's the case. You need to modify that if you want it to work correctly. Okay, after having done that, it will have changed some settings in here. Let's modify our portal. I'm going to sync the configurations. Okay. Then let's open up a brand new private window. Let's look at our Flowhawk vendor portal. Okay. It's going to take a second for it to grab the cache. All right. Let me see if there's anything else. You know, it's so many things in here. Mapping of custom properties is the last bit I will show you once we've created this. Okay, let's sign in and hope that this time the sign up experience will allow us to do so. And there it is. Hooray. All right, so now we can grab and put our email address in here. So I've got that developer account. I'm going to throw that in there. Perfect. Goodness. So relieved. Okay, coming here, we should receive what we do. Here's that code. Perfect. I can come back here, throw the code in here to verify. And now it's going to ask for password. Just create one here. Give a name. So I'll just throw my name in. Actually, just to show, we made these required, right? So if I create an account, it's going to tell me that that's required. These error messages are also in those claims. And so if you want that error to be a little more telling, you know, if you've got something there, you want to give them a little more information, you can absolutely modify those. So I'm going to hit create an account here. It's going to create an account for me. It should ask me for MFA, right? Okay, country code. You see here this massive list. Everything that I've done has only had 1 or 2 regions in it. We can actually modify all the countries that appear in this list using the claims from that MFA, right? So go back to the language customizations, go to the MFA page in the sign up and sign in user flow, download the claims, and you'll find the one that has the entire array of country and regions here. You can delete some, you can move the order of some so that by default, you know, United States or Canada or India appears at the top of the list here. And that way the user doesn't have to scroll down to infinity to find the country that they're registering for. Okay. I'm going to send the code. Wait for it here. All right, perfect. Okay, and it says for me, I wish I had set this up to share the screen. It says for Flowhawk vendor portal. So that entire name does fit in there. And remember, that's our application name that we set up. So let me just use this code, verify it for the MFA. Cool, and just the out-of-box experience now for any portal is to land you at your profile page for you to finish creating your profile. So that all worked and looked the way that we wanted it to, which is awesome. Now, let's say that during that experience, we want the user to pass us some information, let's say about a business that they're a part of. Okay, let me just close this out. The way that we'll do that is by doing a custom user attribute. So coming back out to our Azure B2C, we've got this option here for user attributes. I can add in here a brand new one. Okay, we see here, here's the out of the box ones. I'm surprised that company name is not out of the box, but it's not. So let's add in here company name. Give it a space. Company name. We'll just call it company. Might make it easier for us. Okay. You don't have very many options here for data type. I was hoping that we'd have like a drop down or a choice. You don't. So not much that we can do in terms of validation. Fortunately, if you're like doing a US zip code, you can do integer. But most of the time, these are always going to be strings. So once I create that user attribute, it should create it here for me within our tenant. So now this is an attribute that exists in our tenant. I don't see it here yet. There it is. So company has now been created, and it now says it's a custom attribute type. If I go to our user flows and open up the sign up, sign in user flow here, I can actually now, when I look at the user attributes, grab company and save. So now it's listed there. And under application claims, I can do the same. Now I know I'm going to need to, let's go back. I know I'm going to need to show you in the dataverse where exactly this gets written to. But for the time, let me just, so many tabs now, close that one. You may need that temp email. Okay, so this has been saved. We're back to the application claims now. Let's also grab company, hit save. We'll look under data in the dataverse. Oh, I'm now in the wrong environment. Okay. And back to Azure. Cool, that's been saved. Last thing to do is go to the page layouts in the local account signup and make sure that this new attribute here is set optional no. Okay, so that is required. I don't know what any of these user input types do. Would love to test that out and see what this drop-down single select one is. Cool, something that we can look into later. I'm going to save that. So now our company name is not an optional field, it's required. Once I save that, it should be already updated within our Power Apps portal because the B2C changes happen immediately. So we've got that. Now let me look in the dataverse. The contact table is where all this stuff gets mapped to. So within our contact table, got to find the right field that we want that business name to go to, right? So there's probably one for address one, country, phone, primary contact name, state, province. Okay, nothing there. Let me see if there's one that says business phone, wanting business unit to look up, company. Yeah, that's not going to work either. So here's where you'll want to create a custom field. I'm not going to do that just for the sake of time. I'm going to grab this description field. This is where we'll write it. Okay, so that's the internal name of it. You got to grab that and keep it on hand. So description is where we'll map that attribute to. When I come back and look now at the attribute, if I come back to languages and I run the user flow, I think you can also do this from the overview. I click this link again to show us here the code. You'll see that it's got extension underscore company. Any custom attribute will have extension in front of it with an underscore. I copy that. So now I've got extension underscore company, got that other field that I want to map it to. If I come back to this experience of our identity providers and now I modify the configuration, I do have this under additional settings to do a registration claims mapping. When I click here, it says the name claim pairs, and it says attribute one, claim one. All right, so when I read that, I think attribute one is the name of the field from Dataverse, and we go equals, and then the claim name, which is extension underscore company. All right, we're going to try this out and see if that's the right order. It may be flipped, but from what I remember, that's the way that we want that to go down. Okay, that's been saved. That modifies a setting within our portal, so we got to come back, sync the configurations again. Perfect. Now let's open up a private window. Mohawk Vendor Portal. It should not have cached. Do I have another private window up in here? Probably. Here we go. Let's close that out again. The vendor portal. Sign in. Let's create a new account. Let me grab a temp email. Yeah, let's hit that sign up user flow. And it's nice to know that all's not lost when you can't launch that sign up user flow. Looks like maybe we just had to wait, or some of the settings we set up later helped it work. Something to definitely be aware of. Okay, email address is this one. Let's paste it. Send the verification code. And while that's sending, let me just type in random password. Now we've got given name, surname, and you see here we've got that additional claim called company. So Bryant Boyer, got cat grooming 24/7 is the name of my business. Need that verification code now from our email. Grab that. And you see now we've got that Contoso logo that comes right along with that email here. That's from our branding that we set up. Okay. Run that. Perfect. That should allow me now to create an account. Let's hope this works here. Okay, now it's going to ask again for my MFA. Send code. All right, I'll wait for that to come in. Perfect. Verify. Okay, now here's the trick. In the background, it should be creating a contact for me, passing my first and last name, which is by default mapped to the right fields in the contact. But then also I've got that custom attribute called company. And that company name should now be mapped to the description field on my contact record. So let's go check it out as soon as I can verify that this is created and it lands me at that business company. The profile page here. Perfect. Okay, let's go check out in the dataverse what exactly has happened. So let's look at data. Here is my active contacts. Let's change that just to say all columns. Somebody created a contact here called Mr. Awesome. Cool. I don't know which one of these is the right one, but let's just scroll till we find one that has something in the description field. Like A's description is going to be here. Boom. That cat grooming 24/7 came through on the description. Awesome. Now we could run any sort of Power Automate flows on this to actually create an account for the user. So which, I've done in the past as well, is create a flow, a process that will then create the account and attach it to the person based on what they put in there as their company name. And that way we can use it in the portal, having set up an account for them. Pretty cool. Last thing to show here now is that password reset. Make sure that redirect is happening correctly. So when I sign in and I forgot my password, it's going to send me to that password redirect flow. Again, we didn't customize the branding here, so it's the old one. I believe we are using this email address. Okay. And the verification code. I'm in the wrong one. 1648. 1645. So I think it was the first one. Okay. Grab this code, add it in here, verify that for me. Perfect. Let's reset this password. New. And if we've done it correctly, it should redirect us to the sign and user flow, which it does. You've got to change that claim. That's the piece that's done incorrectly by the wizard. So that's it. That's all I've got for you. Again, this is tricky, but we did it all within an hour and a half, I believe, or within an hour. You can do it. This is possible. Lean on the community and the resources out there. Hopefully this filled in the small holes that I ran into when I walked through this, that were making this just bizarre and a headache. Hopefully it's useful to you. Again, I'm just a guy that did a thing, and the thing I did was connect Azure B2C to a Power Apps portal. Have a good one.